When I was really young, my parents were my world. They provided me everything I thought I needed: food, shelter, clothing, and fun. And although I admit that I did find some of their demands on me, from making me wear clothes that I thought were hideous to making me go on painfully boring family vacations, frustrating and wearisome, much of that was eventually easy to forgive. And then I started to grow up and things changed. In becoming older, like my parents, I could see all the ways that they were flawed, and they each made decisions that were more than frustrating, choices that were disappointing, hurtful, in ways that the youngest me would never imagine. Finding out that my parents were flawed human beings like everyone else shook my world in ways that I think I'm still processing today. One of the consequences of the mistakes of my parents was a deep fear that being surrounded by their influences and being built of their genes, I might someday become like them in their flaws. And I think that fear often drove a subconscious wedge between myself and those around me, preventing me from getting close to others out of fear of hurting them as my parents had hurt me. But building a suit of armor around my own heart did me little good. Encasing it in a protective tomb took away my ability to practice what it was always meant to do: love. So I'm eternally grateful for the immense example of love that I found in the story of Jesus, a story that slowly broke the shackles around my heart and freed me to love and receive love, broken as I might be. Recognizing that we are all flawed in one way or another, and that fear of disappointing and being disappointed, fear of hurting and being hurt, will only keep us from living, I opened my heart again, bit by bit, to love others, and the Jesus inside my heart continued to break barriers, providing a compassion and empathy in me that I didn't realize I was capable of. I think it was those years of learning to love and care for others without expecting a thing in return that helped prepare my heart for my wife. By the time that I met her, I had already practiced that love, sharing my time, experiences, and what I enjoyed with others, being it writing, music, games, building connections that became lasting friendships. And with Karen, I was prepared to love her in all these ways and more. While we share many similar lifestyle tendencies, we are also quite different in many ways, including how we process the world around us. But killing my ego and being willing to see all the ways I'm still flawed and could hurt her, trusting that she is as resilient as I am, or perhaps even more so, gave me the tools to love her and be loved by her. But despite all the ways that I've grown, I have still found myself at a distance from my parents. And though I've tried to bridge the gap, there are ways that I am still yet too inflexible, and perhaps ways that they are also too inflexible, to build the kind of relationship with them that I share with others close to me. And though I had found the love of my life in Karen, I still think my experience with my parents continued to echo in me when people would ask if we were planning to have children. I would tell them that we weren't planning on it, and that was true. But the honest truth is that I was happy being with just Karen, and I would have preferred it being just the two of us. Yet, I also knew in my heart of hearts that, at least for us, there was more growing that we could be doing. There was yet another kind of sacrifice that we had not yet learned to make. And so, when we discovered that we would someday soon be parents to a child of our own, I was prepared to accept it. I couldn't believe it at first, given our age and that we were not at all trying to have children, but I also knew that this would be a critical step in learning to love in ways that I couldn't even experience with Karen, who is strong, smart, and capable, and who gives to me what I give to her in spades. These days, I find myself trying to imagine what my own parents were thinking when they were taking home a small, helpless, crying me from the hospital, trying to understand their hopes and their fears for me, and trying to picture how they were likely also promising to help this little life grow up to be thriving and strong. And in that way, when I think of our little child to be, I find myself feeling a little closer to my parents and a little more ready to understand them. And I can also sense the wonder that they must have experienced in seeing my wriggling little limbs that would someday pad across their floor, break boards in Taekwondo, and even write reminiscences like this, as I marvel at all the possibility and potential in our baby. And in those moments, filled with that kind of love, I sensed that my parents meant well. They didn't always execute well, and they certainly got veered off course at times. And though I hope I should never make the same mistakes, this little life is now a responsibility. And I know I will make mistakes, and the only way forward is to have grace for myself. Perhaps that's the kind of empathy that can increase the grace I have for my own parents. As for now, I'm so very curious to see what kind of person this little child will someday be. And I am also curious to discover what kind of parent I will be as well.